Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon, and today we're going to be doing part 1 of my Roaring Skies complete set review. In this part I'll be going over all the trainers, tools, stadiums and supporters, as well as the one special energy that we have in the set. So let's get cracking and I hope you enjoy. First off, we're going up to the supporters. We have 3 in the set, Wally, Winona and Steven. As you can see, there's just 2 full arts there that you can collect, so pick those up if you're a fan of blinging out your deck. I myself am not, but they do look pretty cool. First off, I'm going to talk about Wally, and as you can see there's chaos on the screen. I'll try and describe it. First of all, let me talk about the card itself. You can search your deck for a card that evolves from one of your Pokemon and evolve it, but you can do this on your first turn or the turn that the basic Pokemon or the stage 1, if you're evolving into a stage 2, was played that turn. So this opens up a lot of doors for a lot of different sort of concepts to come up. You can now look at stage 1 type Pokemon and their attacks as if you could do them turn 1. Cards like Excadrill and Flareon, Donphan even, these are all popular cards that we've seen. Now we can think about doing Vengeance on a turn 1's basis rather than having to use, well I guess Flareon could anyway technically with an EV. If you attach a fire energy you can evolve it and then you can use a Colress mech, but no one does that. Cards like Donphan, Excadrill, Weavile, cards that we've seen be, fairly played, maybe less so the Weavile, but it means we can get them out turn 1 and start attacking, which is very good because decks like Donphan specifically, sitting with a Phanpy can be kind of weak, and if you get Lysandered around, the Phanpy's just sort of dead there. But if you can use Wally turn 1 to get a Donphan setup, or even any time in the game when your field is sort of dead, you can drop a Phanpy, use a Wally, go into a Donphan, and your setup is just right back there again. So I think this is potentially a very good card, especially because there's a Pokemon Shaymany X, I'm sure you've all seen it, that allows you to draw cards in a Pokemon form. Potentially, these sorts of supporters that don't actually draw cards, which we've been so used to, are going to become less of a thing, and more cards like Wally have a chance to shine. I personally really like him, not just for cards that can attack turn 1, like Excadrill and Donphan. Also, it means that we can get things like Garbodor set up turn 1, which is really disruptive. Think about how many times Trubbishes get picked off or sniped before you can get a Garbodor out. Now you can do it turn 1. Also, Blockade, Exeggutor, one of the most annoying decks to play against. I'm sure you all have felt my pain in that instance. You can do that on turn 1 now and prevent your opponent getting any supporters apart from their turn 1 if you were able to attack first turn. Also, Ninetales with Barrier Shrine. This is a card that's not really been seeing too much play, but Stadium Wars are definitely going to be a thing because I'll get onto it in a minute, but Skyfield is a very, very playable and strong card. And being able to lock your Stadium in play on turn 1 with Wally is very, very strong. Even things in the background there, you can see the Pyroar. Doing that turn 1, I mean, that could have been a very scary thought, but the fact that there's so many Megas in the format right now, Pyroar sort of faded away for a little bit. But having these ideas opened up to us now, we can get stage 1s on the first turn and get them attacking if you're going second. That's pretty scary. And I feel like Wally opens up a lot of different plays. Very interesting card. I think he's not going to become a staple in many decks, but he is definitely very interesting. Moving on to Winona, this is another very playable supporter in my opinion. We are getting in Roaring Skies a pretty straightforward new archetype in the form of Mega Rayquaza. His attack does 30 times the number of your bench Pokemon, and there's a lot of good colourless support that we get in this set. I'll get onto the Pokemon in more detail in that part of the video, that second part of the review. But here I'm talking about Winona, because you get to search your deck for 3 colourless Pokemon, not just basics, so it can be the Mega as well, it could be Altaria as well. I'm assuming most of you have seen the scans, so if you're not understanding what I mean when I'm talking about this Altaria, this, that and the other, just follow me, and I hope you can keep up. But basically you can find any colourless Pokemon, and this is really good, because Shaymin, I've already talked about it, it can draw your hand back up to size, where you can keep going with your turn for a little while. So Winona not only searches out cards to help your strategy overall and build up your board, it can also get you cards with Shaymany X. So Winona, a very, very strong card. and I imagine in a lot of Rayquaza based decks, Winona is going to be a staple. The final supporter we have is Steven, and he really is a letdown, to be honest. You get to search your deck for a supporter and a basic energy card and put them into your hand. I really feel this is underwhelming. There's not many options or many times where you feel like Skylaring for supporter for the next turn is ever a good feeling. And Steven is basically that, but you also get an energy. So slightly better in that regard, but most of the time you want a Skylar to get what you want, get the item that has immediate effect on the game, whereas Steven doesn't really give you that, and I really just don't like Steven, to be honest. Next up, we're going on to the stadiums. There's one lone stadium, it's called Skyfield, but don't worry, there's plenty to talk about it. Skyfield allows you to put 8 Pokemon on your bench and on your opponent's bench as well, and as long as Skyfield stays on the field, that's the case, and when it leaves the field, you must discard Pokemon until you go back down to the regular 5. So as you can see, I tried to do a little diagram here. I've gone very basic. I've just thrown loads of copy and pasted Rayquazas and stuff. And as you can see, I've got the 5 there on the fake playmat that I've made. And if the Skyfield was to leave play, the 3 Swablues that you can see outside the mat that would be allowed to be in play with Skyfield, you'd have to discard them. You do get to choose which ones you discard, which is kind of useful, but it's still very painful having to get rid of that. But Skyfield is a very, very strong card, and there's a lot of reasons for this. As you can see, I've blinged up Chorus. He is got to be feeling like a boss right now, because with Skyfield in play, you can draw up to 16 cards of Chorus. That's just absolutely ridiculous. That is like a third of the deck, just with one Chorus. No downsides to it. That is just insane. Testing out with Skyfield, you just have so much draw power with Shamans and Choruses. It's pretty crazy. So he deserves a crown for being the new #1 supporter when Skyfield is around. Not only is Chorus buffed, but there's a whole different bunch of decks that now become a bit more viable. Thinking about cards like Slurpuff and Jinx that we've seen on the bench helping out decks like Seismitoad because they only attack with one attacker. That's always really cool. But now that we have so much more bench slots, we could see these extra cards fitting into our decks because we actually have the bench space for, an extra Slurpuff to help you draw throughout the game. So I feel like there's room for cards like Jinx and Slurpuff. Not necessarily those two in particular, but these sort of ability-based Pokemon that we can just have chilling on our bench because we have so much more space available to us. Also, there's cards like Florges EX, Raichu, and even Seismitoad with Round that just does so much more damage because you have not just 5 bench slots, now you have up to 8. So Raichu can do 160, I think Florges can do 180, and Seismitoad can do unholy amounts of Round if you have that many Pokemon on the bench. So Skyfield, not just Rayquaza, but a whole different bunch of decks. Get a whole good range of options now, and it's a really interesting card to play with. A lot of people say there's downsides to Skyfield as well. You can use things like Executes, just put them on the bench to be a physical body, a presence for these things like Florges EX, so that if Skyfield is discarded, you can simply propagate them and bench them again once you find another one. So many different plays you can do with Skyfield, and of course I talked about that Ninetales, locking that into play. Having Skyfield on the whole time is just really crazy. If that's your strategy, it's a very, very strong card. Next up onto tools, we have 3 in the set, and they are Healing Scarf, Wide Lens, and of course the Spirit Links for the Mega Evolutions. So first off, I'm going to talk about Healing Scarf. I feel like this is a very, very underwhelming trainer, in honesty. Whenever you attach an energy card from your hand to the Pokemon this card is attached to, you get to heal 20. So pretty much any energy that you have, as long as Healing Scarf is involved, becomes a Herbal Energy. And Herbal Energy itself has seen very little play at all. And I feel like there's so many better tools out there that you would prefer over Healing Scarf. Even if you're trying to tank, there's just better ways to do it than Healing Scarf. So, to be honest, I just don't see this card seeing much play at all. Next up, we have Wide Lens. And this allows damage that hits the bench to be applied by weakness and resistance. So if you've got a Landorus using Hammerhead and they have an Eevee on the bench, you can actually do 60 damage to that bench Pokemon and essentially kill it. So there are niche uses to this. Manectric EX doing Overrun, sniping 20, which as we can see will have weakness on Swablu's, something in the new Rayquaza decks used to stop lightning weakness, ironically. You can actually kill Swablu's even if they're on the bench, which is quite interesting. Crobat being a psychic type, there's a few interesting psychic types that could get hit for weakness with Skill Dive. Overall, I just feel like it has niche purposes, but even then, like the amount of times you're going to need Wide Lens and have it in the right situation is so low, I just don't see it being a playable card. At the moment, bench damage isn't too big, and even if it does become big, there's Mr. Mime to stop it pretty much, so I don't see Wide Lens seeing that much play either. Finally, we have the 3 Spirit Links, and here come the spoilers. We have Mega Rayquaza Spirit Link, Latios Spirit Link, and Gallade Spirit Link. Can't really talk much about these, they're all just very helpful, needed pretty much for all these Megas to be potentially playable cards. I think our Megas are actually pretty good in the set overall, and it's good to see Spirit Links carrying on, because otherwise Megas just would not be playable. And then on to the trainer item cards we have. The new trainers, we get Mega Turbo and Trainer's Mail. For reprints, we get Ultra Ball, Revive, and Switch. These are all cards we've seen for a long time. Glad to see Ultra Ball get another reprint as well. Very helpful for new players getting such a playable card. And for Golden Secrets, for those of you who like to bling out the deck, there's Energy Switch and VS Seeker, which you can see there. I imagine those will claim quite a high bounty if you're able to pull one of those. So first off, we have Mega Turbo. And this is another reason why I feel like Mega Pokemon are getting a huge buff in this new set. Mega Turbo allows you to attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your Mega Evolution Pokemon. This really reminds me of Dark Patch. It was very, very good, and it meant that Darkrai was at the helm of the format for a long time. Attaching energy in the form of a trainer card is just so strong, and it helps out Mega EXs, old and new, stuff like Gengar, being able to use Phantom Gate. You can set that up in one turn. If you attach a Psychic Energy, have Dimension Valley, and then Mega Turbo, and then use any attack on your opponent's board, that's pretty crazy. Primal Kyogre, you can do Tidal Storm now on turn 2. And Primal Groudon, a card that's already seeing some success, even though it's so slow, now gets a huge boost in speed. I think Mega Turbo is fantastic. Not to mention the fact that with Mega Rayquaza, it means you can use Emerald Break turn 1, and which is why everyone's pretty much fearing this card as being a really, really good one. So Mega Turbo, a very, very strong trainer, has a lot of uses for all the different primals and megas out there, so I think it's going to be very, very strong. Then we have Trainer's Mail, a card that is either really, really good or really quite good. It allows you to look at the top 4 cards of your deck, and you may reveal a trainer card you find there, except for Trainer's Mail, and put it into your hand. Now, at the moment, I've not confirmed this on PokeGym, on the forums, or anything like that, but I believe that means that we can find ourselves supporters, stadiums, items, and tools. If that's the case, Trainer's Mail is fantastic. A very, very good card for speed decks. You get to find, whatever you can in those 4 cards. Often we see speed variants play huge counts of Acrobite, Roller Skates, all of these things, and Trainer's Mail gets you more access into these cards to mill through the deck even further. I think this is a brilliant, brilliant card. Even if it is only trainer items, it could be amended. Like I say, I've not checked the forums. Even in that scenario, that's how I've been testing it right now. And in the few speed decks that I do play, stuff like Florgus, Trainer's Mail is very, very helpful. Because in those sorts of decks, all you want to do is be good turn 1. And Trainer's Mail really does help you with consistency. Grabbing the ones you want to out of the top 4 is normally allowing you to get one of the ones you actually need at the time. So Trainer's Mail, very, very helpful for speed variants. I don't think it's ever going to be a 4 of card, but maybe a 1 or 2 of in these speed variants. I think it's very, very helpful for getting those clutch cards that you need to. Like I say, we have the reprints. Switch and Ultra Ball already in format. For those of you who haven't seen Revive before, it allows you to put a basic Pokemon from your discard pile onto the bench. Not too many uses for this. I mean, if you're doing it in a Skyfield build trying to recover your board, I could potentially see it being used, but again, it's so niche, I don't see it having much play at the moment. Revive's always been in and around, normally sat at the back of the binder, but it's a good thing to be aware of nonetheless. And finally we have Energy, and just one special in the whole set, and it is Double Dragon Energy. Double Dragon Energy allows you to attach only to Dragon Pokemon, but it provides 2 of any type of energy when it is attached. This is absolutely incredible. So when we have double colorless, now we have double whatever color you want for just Dragon types. At the moment, as it stands, I can't really see many Dragon types that we have in format that could really benefit from this. Potentially Black Chrome EX with Black Ballista. We've seen that card being played in the past. Now having Double Dragon Energy. And there's also a Reshiram in the set that helps you accelerate to dragons as well. I can potentially see some sort of Black Ballista build coming back into the set. Other than that, there's a Dragonite, but there's not much else that we can do as big powerhouse cards, other than this Dragon-type Mega Rayquaza that you can see in the bottom left there. It can do a whopping 300 damage, but for 5 energy. So it's going to be interesting to see if that's actually going to be a playable card. At the moment, we basically just need more Dragon types. There's actually a good amount of support in the set, and you'll see that in the Pokemon. There's also that Hydreigon that you can see there. It means that randomly, Dragons can hit on turn 1 for some pretty crazy damage. That Hydreigon that has a 3 energy cost and it looks really ugly, you can actually achieve that turn 1 if you use a Reshiram plus a Double Dragon Energy. So that 80 for turn 1, and that's base damage. That's not on top of, Verbank Laser and, who knows, a Muscle Band even. You can actually do pretty crazy stuff with Dragons now. Dragons normally have really ugly energy costs. Double Dragon really is a godsend for those sorts of decks. And I feel like there could be some Dragon decks sprouting here and there, because this card is just so strong. So that is my set review of the trainers. I hope you enjoyed, guys, and I hope you agree with most of the things I've chatted about. If I've missed anything, let me know in the comments below. And stay tuned for part 2, where I'll go over all the Pokemon in the set. See you guys later.